Oh, no, the sons of bacon.
The card.
Everyone please stand for the pledge of allegiance and a moment of silence. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Please remain standing for a moment of silence. We have a couple of announcements this morning. Most importantly, teachers, please check dress code. We are having several, and let's talk what it was.
Oh, yeah, I saw that.
Also, students, don't forget, your library books need to be turned into the media center by December the 8th. That is tomorrow. Also, the Raider baseball team is doing the toy drop, so if you're interested in donating a toy to the needy, please see Coach Coley or bring them to the front office, and we will get them where they need to be. Everyone have a great day.
Colin, you got your library books turned in?
Hey, what is that?
What's the library?
All right, good morning.
We have a library.
Today is December 7th, 2021. And what that means is that it is the 80th anniversary of a date which shall live in infamy.
Teachers and students, we've had some students wear some pajama bottoms these last few days. So teachers, if you will, please check We are not allowed to wear pajama pants.
Good. All right, as I was, welcome to December 7th, 2021. 80 years since the anniversary of December 7th, 1941, a date which shall live in infamy. Somebody please tell me what happened on that day.
Pearl Harbor.
Yes, Pearl Harbor, when the Japanese Navy and Air Forces deliberately and suddenly attacked our Navy at Pearl Harbor. Pearl Harbor where? Hawaii, right? Hawaii. And I'm glad we've already talked about that. We've already come through that conversation. I knew that this day would be a school day. I was excited to put this on my calendar and say that we're going to do a Pearl Harbor Remembrance Day today. So even though we've kind of already had the big conversation, I did save a few nuggets because I knew we would have this Tuesday. I think we kind of rushed right at the end of class, watched maybe a minute or two of this video, but I want to show you some of my personal experience visit to Pearl Harbor, the things I videoed with my own camera, and just point out a couple things that I saw there. And since we were rushed to watch this video last week, we'll go ahead and watch it right now.
Hey Raiders, Mr. Swanson here, coming to you from Pearl Harbor, the island of Oahu in Hawaii. If you're watching this video, it means you must be in one of my classes, either U.S. history or world history, and I bet we have had a lesson about Pearl Harbor.
I bet we have.
The United States entering World War II or just World War II in general. So since we just talked about many of these things in class, and I'm right here at Pearl Harbor where the war started in the United States on December 7th, 1941, I'm going to try to bring alive to you some of the things that we just talked about in class.
Took my BC hat all the way to Hawaii.
Let's look at Pearl Harbor. Hawaii here is a place for contemplation, reflection, and reverence. I'm going to go take a look at it.
The little buoy out there is as far as the ship extends.
And we have the names of 1,177 sailors and Marines who perished on the USS Arizona.
It's an anchor from the ship that was recovered on display.
And overall, really cool experience. Highly recommend it. If you ever have the opportunity to go to Hawaii and Oahu, you absolutely come to Pearl Harbor. It's more than just an active naval base. There is the memorial for USS Arizona. There's a USS Missouri behind me. There's a USS Bowfin. It's a submarine. And then there's also memorials for the USS Oklahoma, USS Nevada, and several others. For anyone interested in history, lover of history, and today's classes that intrigued you at all, I encourage you to read more, watch more, and maybe plan a trip out here so you yourself can walk on history. Mr. Swanson from Pearl Harbor. Catch you next time.
Look at that. My kid gave us a lesson before we even went to Pearl Harbor. So it's one thing to maybe watch a documentary. I hope that I think it's kind of next level to talk to someone that's been there, and not just me, but anyone that's experienced history. I hope you'll have conversations with them. Maybe it's grandparents today. Hey, grandma, grandpa, where were you on December 7th, 1941? What do you remember? So History Channel, cool. Usually they do a pretty good job telling the story with photographs and video, but talking to someone that's actually been there, primary source. That's pretty next level, and I encourage you to always be seeking a primary source or talk to someone that's been there. What did you notice in the video? What did you catch? What was that scuba diver doing? Little placard talking about a scuba diver? Did you catch that? It's hard to read. Yeah, okay. 44 survivors of the USS Arizona since 1941. They lived their lives. They passed whatever went on in their lives, whether they passed, of old age or whatever the circumstances were. 44 survivors have chosen to be cremated and returned to the ship. So that scuba diver was holding an urn, obviously waterproof, watertight, and that scuba diver takes the urn to a particular location on the ship. They're all collected together. So of the 1,177 who died on the ship on that day, many of them stuck inside the ship and they're buried there. 44 more have chosen to return to the Arizona and be buried with their shipmates. to me, that shows how obviously what a formative experience it was to them to be a part of Pearl Harbor. And maybe they have some survivor's guilt. Why did I survive and my friends didn't? But whatever the case may be, they chose to have their final resting place be on the USS Arizona. So that's what that was. And then a page you have in front of you, you probably saw on the screen as well. Which page is that?
That's FDR.
This is the one with the chicken scratch handwriting. So go ahead and go ahead and find that page real quick. And just what immediately jumps out at you. We kind of had this conversation last week. Okay, so he's made a lot of edits. Obviously, a speechwriter wrote the first draft, and you can almost typewriter. You can kind of tell it's not from a laser jet ink printer, it's from a typewriter. But the president himself, he changes a couple of really iconic words. What is one of them? Yeah, the very first line, which is the most famous of statements to begin with, he changes it from world history, and I always like pointing that out to this class because this is world history. But he changes it from a date which will live in world history to a date which will live in infamy. Who thinks that world history would have had a more powerful punch, right? World history is a more powerful statement. Who thinks that infamy, as he spoke it, kind of packs a punch a little bit more powerfully? So something to think about. I guess that's why he's the president and the speechwriter was just the speechwriter. Now I think he does change one more. I think he changes one more significant word as well, and it's on the second line. What change does he make?
Suddenly.
Changed from what?
What's suddenly?
Simultaneously. Simultaneous means at the same time, right? Vocab word, simultaneous. And that is almost like describing a sequence of events. It happens simultaneously. To be attacked simultaneously is not as to be attacked suddenly, right? So I think that word also packs a more powerful punch. And he changed it to message to the American people that we were suddenly attacked by surprise. And again, that's why he gets to be the president, because he writes the iconic speech. Jackson?
He also crossed that a lot about where the speechwriter included the bombings in Philippines.
Okay, that's a great point up front, and then they actually do add that. This is a 3-page speech. I didn't give you the other pages, but they do talk about the simultaneous attacks a little bit later. But ELA and persuasive speaking and all that grabs his audience's attention up front. It doesn't bore you with the rest of the conversation till later. And that's a great point, Jackson. That's a great point. This is, I don't know about you guys. Okay, maybe it's because I'm old and boring and don't have TikTok. But I follow a whole bunch of history pages like This Day in History, Facebook, Instagram, websites, whatever. And obviously this being the week of Pearl Harbor and its 80th anniversary, many of these pages have been posting a whole lot of awesome posts and photographs and personal stories. And this is another photograph I stumbled across. I'll probably include it into future class presentations, but I just wanted to show it to you. This is who do you think took this photograph? A Japanese bomber is right. This is a primary source photograph taken by one of the attackers, and what it's showing is that battleship row. To the far left, and you can like barely see it because it's already kind of sunken and underwater, is the USS Nevada. And then, stick here, you can see how the ships were parked, for lack of a better term. They're parked right next to each other. The reason for that was security. But in the end, of course, being parked right next to each other led to easier targets. And I think it's significant which ships are on the outside versus the inside and how that led to different damage. So I'll just point out the Arizona. The Arizona is on the inside, and there's actually a flash of light or of a fireball coming from it right at the moment the photograph has been taken. Outboard of it is the USS Vestal. Maybe you caught in the video, there's like that white brick thing just kind of hovering above the water. That represents where each of the ships were docked on this particular day. Docked is probably a better Navy term than parked. Anyhow, so Arizona, Vestal, we follow the words here, Tennessee, West Virginia. We saw the West Virginia being torpedoed in a different photograph, and that's where Dory Miller, the African-American cook, was on the USS West Virginia. And then let's Maryland outboard, inboard, Oklahoma inboard, and then one more. That's already so just to kind of orient you to that photograph, tell you the ships we've already talked about. I just think it's an amazing photograph because it came from one of the bombers, one of the attackers. Wearing this shirt for the second time because we're talking about Pearl Harbor again. But this is a Hawaiian shirt that has all those ships on it. So if you want to check out my shirt later, you're welcome to do that. Following Pearl Harbor, the country had a rally cry, which was "Remember Pearl Harbor." What other remember statements have we had in the past? Remember 9/11? Okay, the most recent, right? That become a rally cry in our recent conflicts. What else?
The Alamo.
Remember the Alamo, right? If you're a U.S. historian or you know the story of Texas independence, remember the Alamo became a rally cry. Christian, what's your favorite conspiracy theory? Remember the Christian lives. Remember the Lusitania for some reason. Remember the Lusitania became a rally cry as well. So remember whatever recent attack is can become a rallying cry. And remember Pearl Harbor was definitely, this is kind of a war propaganda poster or a motivational poster. And a lot of Americans were really motivated to continue the war because let's remember what they did to us at Pearl Harbor. That definitely leads to the idea of why did we drop the atomic bombs? Maybe, just maybe, it was for revenge for Pearl Harbor because remember, we didn't drop them on the Germans, right? We did drop them on the Japanese who attacked us at Pearl Harbor. Pretty powerful cartoon here. I think it shows how these older men never really lose the thinking of what happened on that day. If you were there, it becomes formative for you for the rest of your life. You may have been 19, 20, 21 when it happened. Strong, fit, tough, brave. And then, of course, let's say we go to the Sunday buffet, and you see these older people. Maybe they're wearing their veteran's hat, and they look like a shell of a they're not a strong man anymore. They're an old man. Well, these old men have never lost the memory of what happened on that day, especially if they experienced it. So pretty powerful just to remember that what we might see as an older person, a grandparent, slow, right, a bad driver. I don't know what your stereotypes are for older people. They were probably tougher than you've ever been, especially if they experienced something like this. Pretty powerful photograph here. You can see the beauty of Hawaii, the beaches, paradise, if you will. But, of course, it's being contrasted with the fact that soldiers are buried in the sand there, or sailors are buried in the sand there. And then this is actually a full-on military cemetery. This is called the Punch Bowl. It's in a little bit of a crater. I think the history is at the old volcanic crater. But this Punch Bowl area became the en masse grave site for the thousands of people who died at Pearl Harbor. So despite the beauty of Hawaii, there's still a lot of kind of harrowing memories that come from what happened on that day 80 years ago today. So we talked a lot about President Roosevelt in his iconic speech. Here he is addressing Congress, and he's asking for a declaration of war. Just to get into government a little bit, the president can't just say we're at war. The president has to ask Congress to declare war. And following our conversation from yesterday, we actually haven't been at a declared war since World War II. Korea, Vietnam, Iraq, Afghanistan, Iraq, and any other military conflict falls under a police action versus a war. This is the last time we actually declared war. So here's what we're going to do today. A little bit of an activity. You saw the chair up there. We moved it. I'll put it back here in just a second. We're going to briefly watch Roosevelt's speech. I want you to hear it from him. Primary source, video and audio. Really powerful address to the nation. Okay, he speaks a little bit slower than you guys are probably used to. I mean, this is a generation, and I'm right there with you. It's a generation that can't handle like a 7-second reel before we move on to the next one, right? So our national attention span is really short. But I want to ask you to pay attention to Roosevelt's speech. And maybe you can even follow along with his, his original draft and see what words he changed. We kind of already pointed this out, day which will live in infamy, and I wanted to get to this picture. One of the coolest artifacts I've ever walked up on in my life. Been to a fair amount of museums, and I would always encourage you to go to museums. There's several awesome ones in the state of Georgia. Fort Benning has a great military museum. I think it hasn't been open since COVID. But if the National Infantry Museum ever opens back up and you're in Columbus, that would be an awesome museum for you to go to. Obviously, things like New York City, Washington, D.C. have a lot of great museums. I've seen a fair share of cool things and artifacts in museums. But I think I love this one so much because, one, I just come through my first year of teaching, and I used this in class. And then, two, I didn't expect to see this. I just walked up on it, and I was, really shook by seeing this artifact and realizing President Roosevelt's own hand had been on this piece of paper And just a really cool artifact. So I just wanted to show you that picture again and point out that if you go to museums, you'll see pretty cool things. What we're going to do today, we're going to watch the Roosevelt speech. And then the second page I gave you has the speech in its entirety. And what is it numbered up to? 27. It's basically one sentence per line. Okay, so more or less he makes 27 sentences. How many students are in this class? 27. I think we have one absent. Jayla, we miss anyone else? I'm like so good at taking attendance. Who else? Jayla and May. That's you right there. All right, so we'll combine two of these lines. Everyone's going to get a number. It's going to be your line. After we've watched the speech, our activity is going to be, I'll explain it briefly right now, just so you can kind of get your head straight, and I'll explain it again. We're going to stack up kind of outside the room and in order. We've got to be quiet, EOC and all that. And so number one is going to come to the podium. I'll have my camera set up, and you're going to deliver line number one. And then you'll flow out. Number two will come in, deliver the lines, flow out, sit back down, be quiet because the video is still rolling. What I'm going to do is I'm going to splice out all the pauses and all the transitions, and we're going to make a class, Day Which Will Live in Infamy speech. And I'll share it with Miss Hannah. Maybe she'll share it on Facebook, whatever. No. But Bacon County High School is going to remember a day which will live in infamy by delivering Franklin Roosevelt's speech. So I will we'll talk about who gets what line here in a second. First thing I want us to do is actually watch the Roosevelt speech, and we'll go from there. After we complete that activity, we will watch some of the Pearl Harbor movie. I've got it queued up to start at December 7th. Okay, not a lot of the whole like lovey-dovey backstory, but we'll start on December 7th. Now, we watched a few minutes in class, but that was actually spliced as well. So we'll watch the full movie for as many minutes as we have left, and that'll be our fun kind of a reward on Pearl Harbor Day. First things first, the Roosevelt speech. Look at my baby. She's a teacher. She's going to be a teacher someday. What you should really take out of that is I gave my family a lesson on the hotel TV before we went to Pearl Harbor. And you're like, wow, I'm glad I'm not in your family. Okay, so I'm going to play this at normal speed for the first couple of sentences because I want you to catch his deliberate tone. I want you to see how he spoke. And really, again, with our fast-paced society, and we got to have like entertainment and quick speaking and all that kind of stuff, I want you to see kind of what yesteryear was like. But then, as a product of this society, I'm going to put it on 1.5 speed. And to be honest, you probably won't even be able to tell the difference. You'll just think it's normal speeching. It's not like it's on fast forward. So I'm just letting you know that. I'm going to start with, Jordan, you get the lights for him. I'm going to start with his normal cadence and tempo, and then we'll go to a little bit faster. Here we go.
Senators and representatives, I have the distinguished honor of presenting the President of the United States.
That's the same room that you would see the president speaking
Mr.
today.
President, Mr. Speaker, members of the Senate, of the House of Representatives, yesterday, December 7th, 1941, a date which will live in infamy. United States of America was suddenly and deliberately attacked by naval and air forces of the Empire of Japan. The United States was at peace with that nation, and at solicitation of Japan, still in conversation with its government and its emperor, looking toward the maintenance of peace in the Pacific. Indeed, 1 hour after Japanese air squadrons had commenced bombing in the American island of Oahu, the Japanese ambassador to the United States and his colleague delivered to our Secretary of State a formal reply to a recent American message. And while this reply stated that it seemed useless to continue the existing diplomatic negotiations. It contained no threat or hint of war or of armed attack. It will be recorded that the distance of Hawaii from Japan makes it obvious that the attack was deliberately planned many days or even weeks ago. During the intervening time, the Japanese government has deliberately sought to deceive the United States by false statements and expressions of hope for continued peace. The attack yesterday on the Hawaiian Islands has caused severe damage to American naval and military forces. I regret to tell you that very many American lives have been lost. In addition, American ships have been reported torpedoed on the high seas between San Francisco and Honolulu. Yesterday, the Japanese government also launched an attack against Malaya. Last night, Japanese forces attacked Hong Kong. Last night, Japanese forces attacked Guam. Last night, Japanese forces attacked the Philippine Islands. Last night, the Japanese attacked Wake Island. And this morning, the Japanese attacked Midway Island. Japan has therefore undertaken a surprise offensive extending throughout the Pacific area. The facts of yesterday and today speak for themselves. The people of the United States have already formed their opinions and will understand the implications for the very life and safety of our nation. As Commander-in-Chief of the Army and Navy, I have directed that all measures be taken for our defense. But always will our whole nation remember the character of the onslaught against us. No matter how long it may take us to overcome this premeditated invasion, the American people in their righteous might will win through to absolute victory. I believe that I interpret the will of the Congress and of the people when I assert that we will not only defend ourselves to the uttermost, but will make it very certain that this form of treachery shall never again endanger us. Hostilities exist. There is no blinking at the fact that our people, our territory, and our interests are in grave danger. With confidence in our armed forces, with the unbounding determination of our people, we will gain the inevitable triumph, so help us God. I ask that the Congress declare that since the unprovoked and dastardly attack by Japan on Sunday, December 7th, 1941, a state of war has existed between the United States and the Japanese Empire.
All right, so a 7-minute speech, and as we slightly fast forwarded, it became shorter than that, is what led America to war against Japan, and then because Germany declared war on us, we declared war on Germany as well. So first thing I would like to do, instead of just randomly pointing at you and giving you your number, for the most iconic of lines, line number 2, yesterday, December 7th, 1941, I want to hold auditions, and I'll let you vote on who you want to deliver this most iconic line. So if you're interested in auditioning for this iconic line, line number 2, go ahead and come right here. Come on, I need at least 2 to battle off, right? Jackson, Christian, Landon, you involved? You interested? Okay. All right, we have ourselves a battle royale over here. So go ahead and Rochambeau for who goes first.
He's got to get his thing.
Yeah.
That's not even the right one.
Yeah. We already voted.
That's the chicken scratch one. That's the
I
draft.
want that one. I want to
Okay.
use this one.
As long as you read the words as they appear. Okay, don't read the speech as it actually happened. Oh, look at it, he's trying to shake your hand. Shake his hand back. You guys need to fight over who goes first, or are you just gonna figure it out? Rochambeau.
Put the thing.
Rochambeau.
What the heck is Rochambeau?
Same thing as rock, paper, scissors.
All right, Christian shall go first. Now we will vote by applause. So pay attention and get ready for who you want to vote for. The second line.
Yesterday, December 7th, 1941, a date which will live in infamy. The United States of America was suddenly and deliberately attacked by naval and air forces of the Empire of Japan.
We'll do the vote off in a second. Clap for his effort. And now, that's not the vote clap, that's just participation claps. All right, Christian.
Yesterday, December 7th, 1941, a date that will live in infamy. The United States of America was suddenly and deliberately attacked by naval and air forces of the Empire of Japan.
I appreciate the action. All right, now here's the actual votes. All right, boys, you got your claps for participation. Here's the votes. Ready? Jackson. Votes for Jackson.
What?
Votes for Jackson. Clap by clap. Vote by clap. Votes for Christian. Okay, Christian, you have numbers 1 and 2 because of our absences. You have lines number 1 and 2. So as I tell you your number, get familiar with your line, okay? Because we're gonna do this live. Now, Christian, you read the paper, and I get that. I would like you to try to make eye contact with the camera for the iconic line. All right, Christian has 1 and 2, 3.
You actually did that voice. I thought you were
Yeah.
You vote for Jackson.
4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26.
You tell the kids.
So start reading your line. So read your line here. Get familiar with your line. Yes.
Inevitable.
Take a minute getting familiar with your line. We will go to the restroom first. Okay. Hey, I gotta fix my number 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25. Got it? I just changed you. 25. This route right here, I changed it slightly. Jackson, I'm back to 26, 27. I knew I messed something up because my numbers weren't shaking out. Thank you for
Hostilities exist. There's no blinking at the fact that our people, our territory, and our interests are in grave danger.
Every groovy on their number. Reading your line. Just a second here. Practice to your partner. Confidence. I would love for you to be trying to make eye contact with the camera, not just looking down.
I'm not doing this.
Anyone taller than me? Yes. All right, check it out. Here's what we're going to do. We're going to go to the bathroom. Listen to me. But I need you to take your script paper, okay? Whether you fold it or you just hold it, that's fine. Because when we come back, we're going to stack in order right here. And the way you're going to do this is number 1 and 2, which is Christian, is going to.
Why don't you just leave a paper on the table?
You're going. Yeah, I will. That's a great idea. So here's the key script right here. Here's the key script right there. As long as you're familiar with your line, you don't necessarily need to take your paper. Great idea, Delaney. You're going to come from this door. Listen to me. You're going to come from this door, and what I want you to do, this is based off of experience. I've done this before. Last time I did this, students like rolled in, said their line, and rolled out, and it got real hard to splice it. I want you to come, set, say your line, finish, and step off. Because when I'm editing, that lets me get a strong line there, okay? If you're like Empire of Japan, and you're already walking off, it makes my edit look really weird. Does that make sense? Right? You're already like flowing out of the camera. So we're going to be real quiet right here as we're stacked up. We're going to come say our line. You're going to leave. Pick a seat, any seat. Just stay off in the corner. I don't care. Till everyone's done. I'll hit stop, clap, all that kind of stuff. So first things first is go to the bathroom.
What is the
Sorry, that's fine. I need to dress up. One more moment. That's what editing is. I'm not trying to
I don't like
One L.
China. It's terrible. It's bad.
Mine's number 8. He's my favorite like one. I really want it home card. I want to say no. I really want to say home card. What one is home card?
It's number 12, and I got 14.
I think you got 8.
It's gonna work. It's gonna work, Grace. You got the side imagery and see yourself. There we go. It's gonna work. That's how the magic happens. That's in your order and then hush it.
Yeah, you're right.
If anyone else is going through the hallway, I would ask you to because all that ambient audio we pick up. We ain't no sound stage quality up here, but let's try to have a good video, okay? Delaney, get where you're going.
I'm going. Sorry, I forgot about it.
There's a script on the podium, or you have it in your hands, that's fine. There is a script on the podium. As long as you know what your number is, you can find it. It's always one.
Hi.
Case 3. Love your speech. You want a jacket? You want a suit jacket? You want a suit jacket?
Her.
Members of the Senate.
Mr. Swanson, where's he at?
December 7th. Yeah. Yeah.
All right, real time. About to press play. Any extra padding you have might get picked up. So that's the difference with quiet. Ready?
I'm not ready for this.
Okay. All right, come on in. We are rolling. Just address the camera. Say your line.
Needs to be straight.
Hang on. I had to where I wanted it because it offsets you from the picture. Okay, there we go. Continue.
Mr. Vice President, Mr. Speaker, members of the Senate and the House of Representatives. Yesterday, December 7th.
Start over. Okay. You can look at your words. It's fine. You're doing a good job.
Mr. Vice President, Mr. Speaker, members of the Senate and the House of Representatives. Yesterday, December 7th, 1941, Mr. Vice President, Mr. Speaker, members of the Senate and the House of Representatives. Yesterday, December 7th, 1941, a date that will live in infamy. The United States of America was suddenly and deliberately attacked by naval and air forces of the Empire of Japan.
The United States was at peace with that nation and, as a solicitation of Japan, was still in conversation with its government and its emperor, looking towards the maintenance of peace in the Pacific.
Indeed, 1 hour after the Japanese air squadrons had commenced bombing in the American island of Oahu, the Japanese ambassador to the United States and his colleague delivered to our Secretary of State to a formal reply. Oh wait, I'm still. Right. Indeed, 1 hour after Japanese air squadrons. Indeed, 1 hour after Japanese air squadrons had commenced bombing in the American island of Oahu, the Japanese ambassador to the United States and his colleague delivered to our Secretary of State a formal reply to a recent American message.
While this reply stated that it seemed useless to continue the existing diplomatic negotiations, it contained no threat or hint of war or armed attack.
It will be recorded that the distance of Hawaii from Japan makes it obvious that the attack was deliberately planned many days or even weeks ago.
During these intervening times, the Japanese have deliberately sought.
Start over, buddy. You're good.
During this intervening time, the Japanese have deliberately sought to deceive the United States through false statements and expressions of continued peace.
The attack yesterday on the Hawaiian Islands has caused severe damage to the American naval and military forces.
Excellent.
I regret to tell you that very many American lives have been lost.
In addition, American ships have been reported torpedoed on the high seas between San Francisco and Honolulu.
Say it again. Go ahead from the top.
In addition, American ships have been reported torpedoed on the high seas between
From top. Torpedoed.
torpedoed.
Got it. From top.
In addition, American ships have been reported torpedoed on high seas between San Francisco and Honolulu.
Yesterday, the Japanese government also launched an attack against Malaya. Last night, Japanese forces attacked Hong Kong.
Last night, the Japanese forces attacked Guam.
This night, Japanese forces attacked the Philippine Islands.
Last night, the Japanese attacked Wake Island.
And this morning, the Japanese attacked Midway Island.
Hang on. Go ahead.
Japan has therefore undertaken a surprise offensive extending throughout the Pacific area.
The facts of yesterday and today speak for themselves.
The people of the United States have already formed their opinions and well understand the implications to the very life and safety of our nation.
As Commander-in-Chief of the Army and Navy, I have directed that all measures be taken for our defense.
But always will our whole nation remember the character of the onslaught against us.
Peanut gallery, be quiet.
No matter how long it may take us to overcome this premeditated invasion, the American people and the righteous might will win through to this absolute victory.
I believe that I interpret the will of the Congress and of the people when I assert that we will not only defend ourselves to the uttermost, but will make it very certain that this foreign treasury shall never again endanger us.
Hostilities exist. There is no blinking in the fact that our people, our territory, and our interests are in great danger.
With confidence in our armed forces, with the unbounding determination of our people, we will gain the inevitable triumph, so help us God. I, as the Congress, declare that since the unprovoked and dastardly attack by Japan on Sunday, December 7th, 1941, a state of war has existed between the United States and the Japanese Empire.
All right, I'm gonna turn the camera towards everyone, and I want y'all to like hoop and holler for yourselves, okay? So on 3, like hoop and holler for yourselves. 1, 2, 3. Hey, I'm proud of y'all. That was fun. Now I gotta edit a bunch of stuff.
Yeah.
That was not good. That was most excellent. Those of you that attempted to put on an accent, I'm so proud of you. Maybe I'm rubbing off on you. I don't know if that's a good thing. But I'm so proud of y'all for being into it. 2 gentlemen that had a little competition for the big line. That was excellent. I'm proud of y'all. So keep your eye towards Google Classroom for a little later today. I'll post a link to that video. It shouldn't be too hard to splice out. The video didn't take too long. I think we said it faster than he did, even with a couple of restarts. And stuff. So, the big takeaway, okay, the big idea today is that today is December 7th, a day which will live in infamy. Hey, back over here. if you were to turn on something like Fox News, CNN, CNBC, whatever the channels are, I bet you'd be seeing something from Pearl Harbor itself. The Pearl Harbor National Memorial Facebook page and website and a variety of other things related to that has posted some really awesome interactive walkthroughs. The World War II Museum, which is out of New Orleans, has posted and shared several interactive walkthroughs related to Pearl Harbor. So there's a lot of information out there. It's kind of up to you to be curious and want to know more. They say that there's a time in a person's life, well, I mean, the saying goes, there's a time in a man's life where he either gets really obsessed with football or World War II history. I'm kind of at the World War II history stage of my life. So it's a really interesting topic. Obviously, it's foundational to the history of the world. And today we're living an anniversary day. So I hope you'll go home, tell your parents that you remember what today is, and maybe even teach them something. The back side of the speech, this is just kind of an infographic page. I just printed it off, just kind of use both sides of the paper and let you take it home. So if you were to file it in your folder, you could do it under extras. It's kind of what it is. It's an extra page. Or, to be honest, I'm not going to be checking the extra section. You want to show it to your parents. You want to put it on your refrigerator. You want to put it in your Bible because it means that much to you. I'm kind of just kidding. Just a really good, interesting page, lots of numbers, and kind of tells the story. Maybe that's something you could share with your friends and family later today. Both of them are extras. Both of them are extras. You guys are doing a good job.
I didn't know what it was.
She got it.
I didn't know what it was.